Some moments are so mundane, so rooted in the everyday, that the idea of them sparking trouble feels like a bad joke. Picture this, a quiet Tuesday afternoon, standing in your front yard, watering your award-winning hydrangeas. It's the kind of task that should soothe the soul, not set it on fire. But for me, that ordinary act was about to become evidence in a case I didn't know I was fighting. With my garden hose rebranded as a suspicious tool and my presence as a 67-year-old black man in my own neighborhood labeled probable cause. It's a surreal gut punch, one too many know. The trouble started with a siren's faint wail, slicing through the calm of Oakwood Grove, a sleepy suburb outside Chicago. Sirens here usually mean a cat stuck in a tree, but this one had teeth, growing louder, sharper, until a police cruiser screeched onto my street, Linden Way. Its red and blue lights slashed across my manicured lawn, glinting off the windows of the house next door. I'm Marcus Bennett, retired structural architect, a man who believes a garden mirrors the solorderly, patient, no tolerance for fools. My hydrangeas, second-place winners in the Oakwood Grove Garden Club, were thriving under my hose's gentle arc when the cruiser parked right in front of my house at 138 Linden Way. My first thought was worry maybe old Mr. Larson's heart was acting up again. But the car didn't stop at his place, or the Wilsons, or the Kims. It stopped at mine. From the corner of my eye, I saw her Ellen Ramsey, my neighbor at 140 Linden Way, a silhouette behind her living room curtain. Ellen, late 50s, seemed to think her mortgage came with a sheriff's badge, making her the self-appointed judge of our street. For 3 years, she'd been a nagging itch in my peaceful retirement. Today, she'd cranked that itch into a full-blown assault. I kept watering, ignoring the cruiser. Rule 1 with provocateurs: never let them see you rattled. An architect doesn't flinch at a crack, he inspects the foundation. A young officer, badge reading Ellis, stepped out, late 20s, earnest but tense, his boots crunching on the pavers I'd laid myself. I turned the hose to a trickle, gave a calm nod. Afternoon, officer. Everything okay? He stopped 10 feet away, hand near his holster-trained stance that screamed warning. Sir, we got a call about suspicious activity here. Someone reported a man loitering, possibly trying to break in. He scanned my gardening clogs, khaki shorts, faded northwestern tee. I held the hose, water pooling at my feet, and let out a tired smile. My late wife, Clara, always said I'd laugh if a piano fell on me, then ask who'd fix the sidewalk. Officer, I said, gesturing to my hydrangeas, the only thing I'm breaking is a watering schedule. These guys are picky. Ellen's curtain twitchage was loving this. Ellis faltered, expecting anger or fear, not wry humor. The caller was concerned, sir. Said she didn't recognize you. Thought you were casing the joint. That phrase, casing the joint, was so absurd I chuckled, a weary sound masking a cold truth. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor. This was a 911 call, a permanent record, a weapon aimed at me because of who I was. Sir, I need ID to confirm you live here, Ellis said, clinging to protocol. My wallet was inside, on the hall table. Who carries ID to water flowers? It's by the front door, I said. I'll grab it, unless that's me making a run for it. I gave him a dry look, inviting him to see the ridiculousness. His face flushed. That's fine, sir. I coiled the hose, walked to my door, feeling his eyes and Ellen's on me. Grabbing my wallet, I returned, leaving the door ajar. Ellis studied my license. Marcus Bennett, 138 Linden Way. He triple-checked the brass numbers on my house. Everything's in order, Mr. Bennett, he said, handing it back. I should hope so, I replied lightly. The bank's been cashing my mortgage checks for 3 years. Then Ellen's door creaked open. She stepped onto her porch, floral housecoat clutched like armor, face fixed in disapproval. Everything okay, officer? She cooed, voice dripping with false worry. I was so scared, seeing this man skulking in the bushes with all those break-ins. I turned, voice flat. Ellen, I was watering my hydrangeas. The ones you praised last week. Her lie crumbled. Ellis's eyes flicked between us, annoyance dawning. He saw the game now. Ma'am, this is Mr. Bennett. He lives here. No issue. Ellen bristled. How was I to know? He was acting odd, waving that hose around. It looked suspicious. Ellis sighed, a sound of someone tired of nonsense. He was watering his plants, ma'am. We've confirmed he's the homeowner. Please use 911 for real emergencies. The rebuke stung her ego. I'm a concerned citizen, she snapped. This is a good neighborhood. We look out for each other. She was rewriting her prejudice as heroism. Ellis shook his head, tipped his hat to me. Sorry for the trouble, Mr. Bennett. He left, lights off, leaving a heavy silence. Ellen glared. Her plan foiled. I wasn't cuffed, wasn't shamed. I nodded slowly, picked up my hose, and resumed watering. Her eyes burned into me. This was war. To grasp why Ellen would call the police over my gardening, you need the backstory. After Clara died 5 years ago, our city home felt hollow, haunted by memories. I craved a fresh start, a yard to shape. Oakwood Grove was idyllic, neat lawns, quiet streets. 138 Linden Way, a brick ranch, had solid bones and a blank canvas yard. But it also had Ellen next door. Our first meeting set the tone. I was on my porch, iced tea in hand, when she marched over with a highlighted copy of the HOA bylaws. I'm Ellen Ramsey, welcoming committee, she said, ignoring my outstretched hand. These are the rules. I marked the important ones: lawn height, trash cans. It wasn't a greeting, it was a warning. Ellen saw the neighborhood as a fiefdom, rules her scepter. Over 3 years, her petty tyranny grew. She left a note calling my Christmas wreath too festive for the street's aesthetic. She measured my trash cans, claiming they were 6 inches too close to the curb, a bylaw violation. She griped to me about the Kims' ethnic smells during their Lunar New Year party, revealing her true colors. I stayed polite, kept my lawn perfect, placed cans with precision, ignored her barbs. But the 911 call was different. It wasn't a note or a whisper, it was a dangerous act, wielding the police as a club because of my race. I couldn't stoop to her level with petty stunts. Clara said my strength was patience, the long game. Architects build for permanence. I'd use Ellen's obsession with rules against her. That night, I skipped TV and poured bourbon, diving into the 87-page HOA covenants. To me, bylaws were blueprints, and Ellen, in her zeal, had grown careless, assuming rules were her weapon, not her mirror. My plan was no rash outburst, but a series of calculated, legal moves to erode her authority. I started walking the neighborhood, phone and notebook in hand, photographing her property from the sidewalk. Her white picket fence around her roses violated the HOA's approved color: cedar or forest green. Her RV, parked on a gravel pad, breached the 72-hour storage rule. A faded election sign lingered weeks past voting day. An unapproved satellite dish peeked from her roof. The rule enforcer was the street's biggest offender, her hypocrisy a gold mine. I launched my offensive at our property line, planting 3 trellises and bushel-gourd seedlings, vines that grow 25 feet, sprouting massive, useless gourds. Trellises under 6 feet needed no approval, and no rule banned oversized vegetables. I built with precision, a green wall rising in view of Ellen's spying window. She watched, suspicious but powerless. I was just gardening. The vines exploded, leaves blanketing the trellises, gourds swelling into absurd orbs. Ellen tried rallying neighbors, clipboard in hand, but Mr. Larson shrugged, and Mrs. Kim, stung by Ellen's past bigotry, shut her door. Ellen's influence was a mirage. She had no allies, only grudges. One morning, she confronted me as I weeded. "Marcus, what are those things?" "Bushel gourds, Ellen," I said brightly, aiming for the state fair. "They hit 100 pounds. They're grotesque, an eyesore," she spat. "They block my view." "Of my house?" I asked. "Thought you'd like art." Her face reddened. "This violates the aesthetic. I'm reporting it." I quoted the bylaws: vegetable gardens allowed, trellises exempt. Her jaw tightened. I'd outplayed her at her own game. She stormed off, door slamming. I knew she'd file a complaint, exactly what I wanted. A week later, an HOA letter arrived, alleging my unusual vegetation was a visual nuisance. It was Ellen's vague, baseless attack, hoping the board would slap me with a warning. I crafted a 3-part response: a rebuttal quoting bylaws and including trellis receipts, a proposal to ensure community compliance, and a survey listing Ellen's violations: fence, RV, sign, dish with dated photos. I framed it as civic duty, sent it certified mail, forcing the HOA to act on her infractions while dismissing my case. It was bureaucratic warfare, turning her complaint into her trap. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. My gourds were compliant. Case closed. Ellen's thicker envelope listed her violations, demanding fixes. Her silence was deafening, but on day 4, she erupted. I was mowing when she charged over, waving her HOA notice, shrieking, "This is your fault." I cut the engine, calm as stone. "Good afternoon, Ellen. What's this? They're fining me, making me move my RV, repaint my fence because of you." I feigned thoughtfulness. "I got a complaint about my garden," suggested the HOA, ensure fairness. Seems they agreed. Her rage spiked. "You did this over that 911 call." I slipped my phone's recorder on. "So, you admit the call was personal, not suspicious?" Her eyes widened, caught. "You people move here, thinking you can do anything," she spat. "This was a respectable neighborhood before you." The racism was bare, witnessed by neighbors. Mr. Larson paused his leaf blower. The Kims watched from their porch. "Ellen," I said coldly, "you're on my property, screaming, admitting to racial harassment. Leave now." She saw the audience, her authority gone. Humiliated, she fled, papers clutched, doors slamming. My recording was gold, her confession, undeniable. I waited a week, letting her think it was over. But I wasn't done. Suing was messy, police complaints bureaucratic. I aimed for her reputation, taking my case to the Oakwood Grove Township Board meeting, a dull monthly affair with a public comment slot. I filed a FOIA request for the 911 call, chilling performance of fake panic. A dangerous man lurking next door. With her lawn rant recording, HOA documents, and a notarized harassment history, I crafted a 3-minute speech, practiced to perfection, calm but searing. At the meeting, Ellen was there, griping about a traffic circle, oblivious to my presence. I stood at the lectern, folder in hand, her eyes widening in shock. "Good evening," I began. "I'm Marcus Bennett, 138 Linden Way, here to address the misuse of 911 for racial harassment. Weeks ago, I was watering my garden when a neighbor called 911, claiming a dangerous man was casing my home. The call was baseless, a waste of resources, and part of years of harassment, culminating in her screaming, 'You people don't belong here.' This isn't about one call, it's about weaponizing public services against a black man for existing." I held up my folder. "I have the 911 audio, her confession, documented history. What's our policy on this abuse? How do we protect our community?" Silence gripped the room. Ellen paled, her friends edging away. The supervisor, stunned, promised review. I sat down, victory quiet but absolute. The fallout was subtle, a social frost. The local paper ran a story, "Resident slams 911 misuse," implying Ellen's guilt. Neighbors shunned her. Her coffee shop, clique dissolved. The township tightened 911 protocols. Ellen fixed her violations, green fence, RV gone, but her spirit broke. Her curtains stayed drawn. My gourds hit peak absurdity. I took one to the state fair for laughs. I planted forsythia bushes, a future hedge of beauty. I joined the HOA's architectural committee, ensuring fair rule enforcement. 18 months later, a for sale sign appeared at 140 Linden Way. Ellen's control crumbled under her shame. Open houses flopped, she hovered, handing sometimes the most mundane moments, those quiet, ordinary slices of life, turn into something so absurd you can't help but laugh. Picture me, a 67-year-old retired architect, standing in my front yard on a sunny Tuesday afternoon in Willow Grove, just outside Chicago, watering my prize-winning hydrangeas. It's the kind of task that's supposed to soothe the soul, not spark a firestorm. But that day, my garden hose was about to be labeled a suspicious instrument, and I, James Carter, a black man who'd called this neighborhood home for 3 years, was about to be cast as a criminal in my own story. It's a feeling too many know, a world tilting, because someone's already decided who you are before you open your mouth. The trouble started with a faint siren, a sound rare in Willow Grove unless someone's cat is stuck up a tree again. But this wasn't a cat rescue while it had teeth, growing louder, closer, urgent. I was tending my endless summer hydrangeas, second-place winners in last year's garden club contest, their deep blue petals drinking in the gentle spray. I'm James, by the way, a man who believes a garden mirrors the soul, orderly, patient, no tolerance for fools. After 42 years designing buildings to last, I now pour that precision into soil and stems. The siren screamed until a police cruiser, lights flashing, screeched to a stop right in front of my house at 142 Oakwood Lane. My first thought was worry had something happened to a neighbor. Old Mr. Delaney, 2 doors down, had a weak heart. But the car wasn't for him, or the Wilsons, or the Lees. It was for me. The lights painted my lawn red and blue, reflecting off the windows of the house next door Margaret Hensley's place. Through her sheer curtains, I caught her silhouette, watching like a hawk. Margaret, late 50s, acted like her mortgage came with a sheriff's badge, ruling Oakwood Lane with an iron frown. For 3 years, she'd been a persistent thorn in my side, but today, she'd upgraded from annoyance to orchestrator of this drama. I kept watering, pretending I hadn't noticed the cruiser. Rule 1 when dealing with instigators: never let them see you sweat. An architect doesn't panic at a crack, checks the foundation. A young officer, maybe late 20s, stepped out, adjusting his belt with the nervous energy of someone new to the badge but feeling its weight. His boots crunched on the pavers I'd laid 2 summers ago as he approached. I turned off the nozzle, letting the water trickle, and gave a calm nod. "Afternoon, officer. Everything okay?" He stopped 10 feet away, hand near his holster, a trained stance that screams caution. "Sir," he said, eyes scanning my house, yard, windows. "We got a call about suspicious activity here. Someone reported a man loitering, possibly trying to break in." I glanced at the hose, water pooling at my feet, then back at him. In my clogs, khakis, and faded Northwestern t-shirt, I was about as menacing as a garden gnome. A tired smile crept onto my face, me quirk, finding humor in absurdity. My late wife, Clara, used to say I'd laugh if a piano fell on me, then ask who's fixing the sidewalk. "Officer," I said, gesturing to my hydrangeas, "the only thing I'm breaking into is a watering schedule. These guys are picky." Margaret's curtain twitched. She was loving this. The officer, badge reading Thompson, seemed thrown by my calm. He'd expected fear or anger, not wry amusement. The caller was concerned. He pressed, said she didn't recognize you. "Thought you were casing the joint." That phrase, casing the joint, felt like a line from a bad noir film, dropped into my suburban afternoon. I couldn't help it. A small, weary laugh escaped. Not mocking, but heavy with the weight of what this was. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor. This was a 911 call, a permanent record, and I knew it couldn't stand unchallenged. Thompson's eyes flickered, trying to square the frantic call with the retiree before him. "Sir, I need ID to confirm you live here." The request was standard, but on my own lawn, it stung like a slap. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice even. "My wallet's inside, on the hall table. I'll grab itemless that counts as fleeing." A dry look, inviting him to see the ridiculousness. His face flushed. "No, sir, that's fine." I coiled the hose, set it down, and walked to my door, feeling his gaze and Margaret's unblinking stare. I grabbed my wallet, left the door ajar, and handed him my license. He studied it. James Carter, 142, Oakwood Lane. The brass numbers on my door matched. He triple-checked, stalling, maybe realizing he'd been sent on a fool's errand. "All right, Mr. Carter," he said, returning it. "Everything's in order." "I'd hope so," I replied lightly. "The bank's been sure I live here for 3 years." That's when Margaret's door creaked open. She stepped onto her porch, clutching a floral robe like armor, her face a mask of disapproval. "Everything all right, officer?" she called, voice dripping with fake concern. I was so worried, seeing this man in the bushes with all the break-ins lately. I turned, dropping the humor. "Margaret, I was watering my hydrangeas, the ones you complimented last week." Her face tightened, her lie about not knowing me crumbled. Thompson glanced between us, annoyance flashing. He saw it now, not a burglary, but a neighborhood spat with him as the pawn. "Ma'am," he said, "this is Mr. Carter. He lives here." "No issue." Margaret bristled. How was I to know? He was acting odd, waving that hose around. It looked suspicious. Thompson sighed, a sound of someone tired of nonsense. He was watering his plants. "We've confirmed he's the homeowner. Please be sure before calling 911 it's for emergencies." The rebuke, mild but pointed, hit her ego hard. Her face shrank. "I was being a concerned citizen," she snapped. This is a good neighborhood. We look out for each other. It was a masterclass in reframing prejudice as virtue. Thompson shook his head, tipped his hat to me. Sorry, Mr. Carter. Have a good day. He drove off, lights off, leaving a heavy silence. Margaret glared, fury raw. She hadn't gotten her Shono handcuffs, no humiliation. I nodded slowly, picked up my hose, and resumed watering, her eyes burning into my back. This wasn't over, it was war. To understand why Margaret would call 911 over a man gardening, you need the lay of the land. When Clara died 5 years ago, our city home felt haunted by memories. After designing buildings for decades, I wanted a final project, a quiet house with a yard to shape. Willow Grove was perfect, tidy lawns, old trees, peace. 142, Oakwood Lane, a solid brick ranch, had good bones and a blank canvas yard. But it also had Margaret at 144. Our first meeting set the tone. Days after moving in, I was sipping iced tea on my steps when she marched over, paper in hand. I'm Margaret Hensley, your neighbor, she said, no warmth, ignoring my outstretched hand. These are the HOA bylaws. I'm on the welcoming committee. She thrust the paper at me, sections highlighted in aggressive yellow, rules on lawn height, trash cans. It wasn't a welcome, it was a warning. Margaret saw the world as properties to control, herself the enforcer. Over 3 years, her petty tyranny grew. A note about my too festive Christmas wreath, measuring my trash cans to prove they were 6 inches off, complaining about the Lee's ethnic smells during Lunar New Year. That one revealed her true colors, not order, but fear of difference. I handled her like a mosquito, ignored or brushed off. My lawn was flawless, my cans precise. I stayed polite, craving peace. But the 911 call crossed a line. It wasn't a notie, it was a weapon, risking my safety because of who I am. In that moment, I wasn't James, the architect. I was a dangerous black man, cast by Margaret with the police as her director. I wouldn't stoop to her Lavelno fence wars or dawn mowing. Clara said my strength was patience, the long game. Architects build slow, studying terrain, laws, plans. I'd treat Margaret like a project, a quiet, meticulous revenge, using her beloved rules against her. That night, I skipped TV and opened the 87-page HOA covenants, bourbon in hand. To most, it's dry. To me, it's a blueprint. Margaret wielded rules as a club, but she'd grown sloppy, assuming they only applied to others. That was her flaw. My plan wasn't one grand strike, but a series of precise cuts, dismantling her authority legally. I started walking the neighborhood, phone and notebook in hand, surveying her property from the sidewalk. Her white picket fence violated HOA color rules, cedar or forest green only. Click, photo saved. Her RV, parked on a gravel pad 11 months a year, broke the 72-hour rule. Click. A political sign lingered post-election, a satellite dish unapproved. The rule queen was the block's biggest offender, her hypocrisy blinding her. My Hensley project folder grew. Meanwhile, I launched my offensive, a garden masterpiece. Along our property line, I built 3 trellises, under 6 feet, no approval needed per HOA rules. I planted bushel gourds vines that grow 25 feet, sprouting massive, useless green orbs. Legal, absurd, and right in her living room view the window where she'd watched my police ordeal. I dug, composted, and installed with precision, Margaret peering out, suspicious but powerless. The vines exploded, leaves blanketing the trellises, gourds swelling into lumpy giants. They drove her wild. She tried rallying neighbors, clipboard in hand, pointing at my eyesore. But Mr. Delaney shrugged. Mrs. Lee, stung by her past slights, shut her door. Margaret had no allies, only subjects, and her grip was slipping. One Saturday, she confronted me as I weeded. James, what are those things? She hissed, stopping short of my line. Bushel gourds, I said cheerfully, aiming for the state fair. They hit 100 pounds. They're grotesque, blocking my view. Your view of my house. I stood, meeting her glare. Thought you'd like art. Her face reddened. This is a violation. I'm reporting it. Go ahead, I said, citing bylaws on gardens and trellises. Her jaw clenched, been outruled. She stormed off, door slamming. I knew she'd complain to the HOA, exactly what I wanted. A week later, an HOA letter arrived. alleging my trellises were a visual nuisance. It was Margaret's vague, baseless attack, hoping the board would slap me with a warning. Instead, it was my opening. I drafted a response over 3 nights, a bureaucratic masterpiece. Part 1 rebutted her claim, quoting bylaws, including trellis exemptions and a receipt proving their height. I added a university printout on gourds as heritage plants, framing them as educational. Part 2 proposed community harmony by ensuring all properties complied with bylaws. Part 3 listed her violations: fence, RV, sign, dish with dated photos, framed as a civic gesture. I sent it via certified mail, a legal declaration of war disguised as cooperation. The HOA acted. My complaint was dismissed. I was compliant. Margaret's thicker envelope listed her violations with deadlines. Her weapon had turned on her. For 3 days, her house was silent, rage brewing. On the 4th, she erupted, storming over as I mowed, waving her HOA notice. "This is your fault," she shrieked. I killed the engine, staying calm. "Good afternoon, Margaret. What's this about?" "They're fining me. The fence, the rivets because of you." "I got a complaint about my garden," I said. I suggested fair enforcement. Seems they agreed. Her rage peaked. "You did this because of that 911 call." I slipped my phone's recorder on. "So, you admit the call was personal, not about a suspicious person?" Her eyes widened, caught. "You people move in, thinking you can do anything. You don't belong here with your weird vegetables." The mask fell raw racism for all to hear. Neighbors watched. Mr. Delaney stopped his blower. The Lees stood on their steps. "Margaret," I said, voice cold, "choose your words carefully. You're on my property, admitting to racial harassment." She froze, seeing the audience, her image shattered. "I'm the victim," she screamed, but fled, papers clutched, doors slamming. My recording captured her confession. The gourds had baited her. Now I had her words. I waited a week, letting her think it was over. But I aimed higher, not police or lawsuits, but her reputation. I targeted the Willow Grove Township Board meeting, a monthly snooze fest with a public comment slot. I filed a FOIA request for her 911 calla chilling performance of fake panic. A dangerous man lurking. I compiled evidence. The call, her recorded rant, HOA documents, a notarized history of her harassment. My 3-minute speech was lean, factual, practiced to perfection. Meeting night, I wore a suit, folder in hand. Margaret was there, complaining about a traffic circle, oblivious. I took the lectern, her shock palpable. "Good evening," I began. "I'm James Carter, 142, Oakwood Lane. Willow Grove is wonderful, safe, quiet, mostly welcoming. But I'm here about a serious issue, the misuse of 911 for racial harassment." The room hushed. Weeks ago, I was watering my garden when a neighbor called 911, claiming a dangerous man was casing my home. The call was baseless, wasting resources. It was part of years of harassment, culminating in her screaming, "You people don't belong here." I held up my folder. I have the 911 audio, her confession, documented history. I'm not seeking retribution, but asking, how do we stop emergency services from being weaponized for prejudice? I sat down, 252 used. Silence. Margaret looked ashen, her friends edging away. The supervisor promised review. The police chief's glance spoke volumes. The fallout was quiet but seismic. The local paper ran, "Resident raises 911 misuse concerns," outing Margaret's actions without naming her. Neighbors shunned her, nods became averted eyes. She painted her fence green, moved the RV, removed the sign, but her misery was palpable. Her curtains stayed drawn. My gourds hit peak absurdity. I took one to the state fair for laughs. Fall came, gourds composted, replaced by Forsythia bushica, future hedge of yellow beauty. Margaret became a ghost, her power gone. I joined the HOA's architectural committee, ensuring fair rule enforcement, helping neighbors build, not burn. 18 months later, a for sale sign appeared at 144. Margaret couldn't face the judgment. Open houses flopped, she hovered, handing out laminated house rules. Agent Sarah confided, a bouncy deck, a hidden ceiling crack, sketchy wiring. I checked HOA records, no deck permit. Sarah's inspector confirmed. The deck was a death trap, the ceiling sagged from a missing load-bearing wall, the wiring a fire hazard. The house was unsellable, repairs costing a fortune. The sign faded, buyers vanished. One evening, Robert, her silent husband, approached my porch, cap in hand. She wanted me to poison your bushes, he said. I refused. She's not wealthier, turned her mean. The house is a bust. I'm sorry for it all. His apology, raw and unexpected, was the true victory. Weeks later, a foreclosure sign joined the faded for sale. They left quietly, a U-Haul carrying little. The house sat boarded up until Maria and Javier Diaz bought it cheap. They gutted it, new deck, steel beam, rewired, building a safe home. Their kids' laughter filled the street. Maria's cooking scented the air. When their son, Leo, kicked a ball over my hedge, I gave him popsicles, Maria thanking me from her porch. Peace settled, not just victory, but restoration. Margaret's kingdom of fear crumbled. We built one of decency. My garden, my neighborhood, bloomed anew.